Faith, Family Culture with Luke and Susie. And look, Beth got in touch with us and sent us a message saying, what are people's top tips for organising a small office or craft space?
So we love to respond to your questions and thoughts. What's going on for you? That was done via the Luke and Susie discourse, which is you can check out online at the website or the social media. And this is one thing that came through. Very important because it's often one of the smallest rooms, but often one of the most important rooms of the house. That might be the craft room, it might be the office, but it's usually a 3x3 meter sort of room or less. But you've got to maximise the space because there's a lot going on. So we to start with, we've instilled the expert advice on this.
We have Bonnie, Little Miss Organised. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good, thank you. Now I'm assuming because she's put a small office or craft space. It'd be good to get a couple of answers from you, if that's possible.
Yeah, so let's do it in two separate ones. Which one do we want to start with, the office or the craft space?
Yeah, but then I also thought, what if someone actually has to have the same room for both the office and the craft space?
Maybe we're overthinking it. All right, let's see what you've got to say. When it's often the smallest room in the house, but we need to make use of it. Bonnie, what do we do? What are the key things?
Okay, well, it's not that unusual for people to need to use spaces for multiple purposes, and to have a fairly decent-sized desk that you can use for office purposes as well as a craft room is not that unusual. So I think we'll address it as a multi-use area because it sounds like that's what it is. So the first thing to do is to actually sit down and analyse what is going on in that space. What is Beth using it for? What sort of activities is she doing there, and what sort of does she need to be there as part of that? So once she kind of sits down and makes a bit of a plan and an analysis of what's going on, then she can really, work towards what she needs to do with the space. So the next step is really to work out what is essential to completing those tasks or those activities in that space. And anything that's not essential to that purpose or is not part of the craft zone or is not part of an office zone really needs to find a home elsewhere in the house.
Oh, I love that. That's great.
So was that move stuff or chuck stuff out? That sounds a little bit over the top to me.
Yes, I know you like to hold on to things, Luke, but most people have stuff they need to get rid of.
Yeah. Hey, look, yes. I have this reputation as the hoarder, and my wife refers to me as the hoarder, but I can tell you that stuff that just stays around, at least my things have practical use.
Mine's memorabilia stuff, like photos. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, and yet, my keeping of my beard was not on your list of.
Oh, it's so gross.
Honestly,
let's
get back to Beth. Okay, so we've got to get rid of some stuff. But is there some generic I guess overarching rules that would help Beth to organise that space?
Yeah, absolutely. So if it's a multi-purpose zone, using colour coordination will actually help with the storage side of things to know what's craft-related and what's office-related. Another thing would be going digital instead of using paper in the office. That would save a lot of space as well. And just making sure that things are in clear, maybe colour-tinted labelled boxes so that she can know what she needs to grab and where it is quite effectively. And, boxes stack really well, and being clear, they're easy to see through, and the labels will just help with that as well. So there's, quite a few steps to make sure that it's a functional and practical space, but it's absolutely achievable.
Like something like, pink lids for the craft and, black lids for the office, or something on the containers which just colour coordinates which one's which.
That's a very psychedelic sounding office, Luke.
Isn't it?
I went for black so I didn't stereotype the pink and blue together.
Okay, I'm really liking this idea. I do have one more question for you, though. We're going to talk a little bit more with Bonnie, Little Miss Organised, next. Faith, Family Culture with Luke and Susie. We are answering Beth's question today. Beth was talking about organising the office space and or craft space, and Little Miss Organised, Bonnie's joining us to talk about it. Now, Bonnie, the question that I have is, what about if you're in a space that has zero storage to start with? Like, what are the best uses of space as far as creating storage? So it's a blank room, no cupboards, nothing.
Oh, it depends on your budget, because you could go anywhere from, stock standard storage from IKEA and Superamart and those kind of places to a full-on cabinet maker fit out. So it really depends on your budget. But once you know what your budget is, work within those guidelines. So if you're talking about someone who's really, trying to scrimp and save, you can find a whole lot of stuff on the street at Curbside Collections that you could put into place for your storage units. You could go to places like Recycle World and the Tip Shop and find really cheap, good items. Places like Gumtree often have freebies to give away that are perfectly usable, but someone else just doesn't want them and it's not worth their time to sell it. So there are bargains out there to be had, but it's all about working within your budget and making sure that you have a plan in place rather than just randomly picking up stuff, putting it in and seeing how it works. So it's more about being, organised and prepared before you actually go and purchase.
That's the name, Little Miss Organised. Let's say you've got a 3x3 room that needs to be office and craft space. This is you. And we're not worried about budget at this particular point for this question. No storage in the room. How much of that room do you dedicate to storage that can be locked away versus what you leave for desk and open space?
Well, look, I always approach things from a minimalistic point of view. I love having a clear desk, so I would be utilising as much cupboard and storage space as possible. And the great thing about craft rooms is there are so many ideas on Pinterest for setting up, dowel rolls so that you can access all your ribbons without having to get them out of a box. So, if someone is setting up a craft room, Pinterest is really the mecca for them to go and find all the ideas that will work for them. But it's all about how much stuff you actually have and need to put in that space, because some people, their craft room is very minimalistic, and there's other people, which is most of the population who have craft rooms, have a lot of stuff. So it's all about how much you've got, how accessible you want it to be, and you can work your storage around that.
For me, craft room would be code for a place where I stuff things that I don't know where they go.
Yes, and that's probably code for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Hey, we really appreciate your time in answering Beth's question. Little Miss Organised is our guest. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.